Walking the mile, walking the mile, walking the mile, walking the mile.
Imagine this. It's August 6th, 1890. You're standing in a room crowded with silent onlookers. The air hums with tension, and a strange, low buzzing fills the silence. Everyone's here to witness a modern marvel in justice, the electric chair. But as you'll soon see, this moment is about to become a nightmare no one could have predicted. William Kemmler is at the center of it all, though not in the way he or anyone else had imagined. Today, he's set to make history, becoming the first person executed by electric chair, a method supposedly more humane than hanging. But things don't go as planned. The first jolt of electricity shoots through Kemmler's body, and instead of an instant death, his body jerks violently. The people watching gasp, horrified as the smell of burning flesh fills the room. There's this awful crackling sound, and after a few tense moments, everyone thinks it's finally over, but then the doctor checks Kemmler's pulse and realizes he's still alive. They have to shock him again, and this time it's stronger. By the time Kemmler is pronounced dead, the room is filled with dread. This electric chair, this supposed humane invention, now seems even worse than the gallows. And here's where things get even stranger. The electric chair wasn't invented by a scientist or an engineer, but by a dentist. That's right. Alfred P. Southwick, a dentist from Buffalo, New York, thought he'd stumbled upon a more civilized way to execute people. One day in the early 1880s, he saw a man die instantly after touching a live wire. To most people, it was a tragedy, but Southwick saw something else. What if electricity could make executions quick, clean, and less brutal than hanging? So, Southwick teamed up with doctors and engineers, hoping to turn this tragic accident into a modern solution for capital punishment. He wanted to bring science and order into the death chamber, replacing the gruesome public hangings that often went wrong. But as they developed the chair, people started asking questions. Was this really any less cruel, or just a new kind of horror waiting to unfold? New York State was eager to adopt Southwick's idea. In 1888, they passed the Electrical Execution Law, making them the first state to adopt the electric chair. But not everyone was convinced. Many wondered, was it ethical to test such a brutal method on human beings? Was it really okay to experiment on prisoners with something so untested? And then there was William Kemmler. Convicted of murdering his common-law wife, he became the first man chosen to face this new execution method. Kemmler's case quickly turned controversial. His lawyers, backed by rivals of the chair's creators, argued that electrocution was cruel and unusual punishment, violating the Eighth Amendment. But the court pushed forward, setting the date for Kemmler's execution. No one could have imagined the horror that was about to unfold. Now here's a twist. While the electric chair was being prepared for its debut, a much larger battle was raging in the background, the infamous War of Currents. This was no small rivalry. On one side, you had Thomas Edison, championing direct current, DC, and on the other, George Westinghouse, pushing alternating current, AC. This wasn't just about electricity, it was about control, power, and the future of America's infrastructure. Edison, ever the showman, saw the electric chair as his perfect chance to turn the public against AC. So, he staged public demonstrations, using AC to electrocute animals in front of horrified crowds. His goal? To convince people that AC was lethal and had no place in their homes. For Edison, this was war, and he wanted to win by any means necessary. Westinghouse, on the other hand, fought desperately to distance his technology from executions, fearing that the association would destroy his business. When Kemmler's execution day finally arrived, AC was the current of choice. Edison had his PR victory, but at a horrifying human cost. The day of Kemmler's execution was supposed to mark the dawn of a new, modern era. Instead, it became a horror show. Kemmler was strapped in, and the first jolt of electricity hit him. But instead of dying instantly, his body smoked and burned while he continued to breathe. For what felt like an eternity, he was still alive, his skin searing and his flesh smoldering. They had to send a second jolt of 2,000 volts to finally end it. Newspapers went wild. It was far worse than hanging, one reporter wrote. The public was outraged, horrified by what had unfolded. This electric chair, this so-called innovation, seemed to be nothing more than another brutal tool of punishment. Legal challenges quickly followed, but the electric chair had already begun its grim march across the country. You'd think after the disaster of Kemmler's execution, people might have reconsidered the electric chair, but no. State after state adopted it, and soon it was the standard for executions across the U.S. By the mid-20th century, the electric chair had become synonymous with capital punishment in America. But as more executions were carried out, stories of botched executions kept surfacing. People who survived multiple shocks, enduring excruciating pain before finally succumbing. The electric chair became infamous, symbolizing both justice and cruelty. As the years went by, people began to question whether this modern method was really any better than the hangings it had replaced. Fast forward to the late 20th century, and the electric chair was under siege. Human rights advocates and legal experts began calling it a form of torture, citing countless examples of botched executions. The introduction of lethal injection in the 1980s, a method marketed as more clinical and humane, began pushing the electric chair out of favor. State by state, it was phased out, but its legacy remains a haunting chapter in the history of American justice.